Hi everyone, Roger here from What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be running through some of the Disney Plus news from the past week, which include Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Also be talking about Life and Death, and probably also The Little Mermaid and a few other bits and pieces. And I'm going to be joined later by James, where we're going to kind of be just sort of spitballing some ideas around about some things that we want to see on Disney Plus. This was a question that was asked to us on Twitter, and I thought it was a cool idea. Especially with James being away on vacation, it was a good way of talking a bit about Disney Plus this week. Next week, we should be back to normal once he's back home. But nevertheless, jump into some of the news. But before we do that, make sure you do hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. You can also subscribe on all the different audio platforms. So you got Spotify, iTunes, you've also got Google, etc., etc. So let's talk a bit about news. So there was two major things that kind of came out this week. Nothing official. It's been a very quite a quiet week. I think with Independence Day on the Thursday, there was no news coming out that day. There wasn't really anything coming through on Friday. I was expecting some kind of big trailer on July 4th, but they didn't even really do that. Earlier in the week, we did get a new trailer for Spies in Disguise, which is going to be coming out on Christmas Day in the US. And that is an animation done by Blue Sky Studios, which obviously got brought out by Fox, stars Tom Holland and also Will Smith. And Will Smith gets turned into a pigeon. So that one looks kind of interesting. I'm definitely thinking that this is a movie that's going to eventually end up on Disney Plus. I'm not sure if Blue Sky Studios are going to be on there straight away. I think one of the issues, obviously, is Fox had to deal with stars for sending new movies there first. So it might come under that. So it might be a while before we get it, maybe a year, 18 months. But obviously doesn't mean the other ones can't come on there. But it's nice to see Disney kind of promoting Blue Sky Studios a lot this week. That's been a great thing. I've been really enjoying seeing on their social media. They are really pushing it. I think they've really sort of kicked into that with pushing their movies. Where an example, like something like I think Stuber, which is a movie starring Batista, they've not really been pushing that so much for the standard channels, but I think if it's family friendly, they have been pushing it through on the main social media channels. And I think that's definitely a good call from Disney's point of view. So that's great to see that one coming through. Like I said, not sure if that's going to be coming to Disney Plus straight away, but I imagine it will be coming soon. We already know that Horton Hears a Who is going to be one of the Fox movies on Disney Plus when it launches. We don't yet know about the other ones like Ice Age, etc. But keeping on the Fox idea, just before I did the quick recording, I just put up a story about Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Apparently, there is a TV series in development coming to Disney+. Production is set to start next year. Interesting thing with this is production, this idea had already been floating around before Disney purchased it. I think this is a great idea. The movies were kind of quite cheap to produce. They've done very well at the box office considering their budget. And they made 4 of them, so they've got a market. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if these movies are also on Disney Plus as well, kind of tie into all of this kind of thing. I don't know if you are subscribed to the Fox Family channel. You get to see all their movies and stuff that they push, kind of the family-friendly side of things like Mrs. Doubtfire, Ice Age, Epic, things like that. I definitely feel like everything that kind of is being promoted through that is very much ripe for Disney Plus to kind of come in and sweep them all up. But I think really until Disney Plus kind of gets its marketing stuff going later this year, we're not really going to be finding out much more about all this. Hoping at the D23 Expo, we're going to be finding out a lot more, which is taking place next month. San Diego Comic-Con, yeah, nothing much really kind of got announced for that. Even Marvel Studios themselves are not going to be there, which I was kind of surprised when the news started coming out through Deadline that they were going to be there. I was expecting them to be, but eventually they put out the information. They know where to be seen. None of the really big boys there. It definitely feels kind of lackluster this year. The only thing really from the Disney Channel is going to be the DuckTales series, and Marvel are there mainly pushing their cartoon, and also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nothing much really coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, so I'm not expecting too much there. So everyone's going to be on that D23 Expo. Obviously, we've got that Disney Plus presentation there as well, which I'm excited to see what they do with that. I'm hoping as well they'll just start announcing some new the back catalog stuff. We have been asked a lot on the Facebook group about what's coming, because obviously it's been a few months since that Investors Day. I did put up an article with a full list of everything I knew, just because I've had that many requests to do so. So that one there was pretty much put up really for the Facebook group, which if you aren't a member, definitely go join it. You'll find it Disney Plus. You find it's one of the biggest groups, Facebook/groups/ what's on Disney Plus. But let's move into a little bit more news. There was another TV series which was revealed, again, not officially, but coming through all the standard channels. And this one is Life and Death. So this one is going to be starring, and I'm just going to bring up her name here, Marley Martin, who starred in The West Wing. She was also in Switched at Birth and The L Word. I'll be honest, I recognized her instantly from Seinfeld, and hence why in the video on the YouTube channel there's a little bit of clip of her, because that's who I instantly recognized her. I was a big Seinfeld fan. So they're going to be doing this series. Now this one is based on the life of Jack Jason, who is her interpreter. And it is going to be based on a kid growing up in the 70s with a deaf parents. I'm wondering if she's going to be playing maybe the mum or something. And it basically just goes about the mischief that ensues when, as the ears and the mouthpiece of the family, he's kind of given the keys of the kingdom. It's kind of interesting to see. I'm really liking this because it's definitely about inclusion. It's about including, obviously, disabilities and just having some different kind of content. Just because there's maybe one person or two people deaf in it, the rest of us are going to be able to enjoy it. But it's also hopefully going to be sort of bringing in sort of deaf culture, and just in general, I think that's kind of a great thing to do. And yeah, just interesting to see where they go with this one. And I think stuff like this is definitely a push forward, and giving us some situation comedies is definitely a key thing. There doesn't seem to be enough of them out now. I always loved situation comedies, and it'd be nice just to kind of have something fresh on there as well. So that was kind of pretty cool. Again, not officially confirmed, but lots of details coming out there about who's working on it. It's going to be the Switched at Birth creator, Lizzie Weiss, and also Patricia Heaton, and I think that's and also they've got Four Boys Entertainment and CBS Studios are working on it. So this is like the second TV series that we've seen coming to Disney Plus from CBS TV Studios, obviously like buying up from other places, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Disney Plus are very much aware that they need to do that. Other than that, on like the Disney Plus front, there wasn't really too much more. There was some artwork that got revealed of the Mandalorian. I'm showing off some artwork on some t-shirts on Amazon, but they quickly got pulled. So don't know necessarily if they were real or fake. We'll have to wait and see. National Geographic put out some information on a new series of Gordon Ramsay, Uncharted. And this one looks really interesting. I'm a big fan of Gordon Ramsay. Been watching his stuff for years. And we know that this is coming to Disney Plus. It's going to be coming to the National Geographic channel in July, but it has been confirmed that it's going to be coming as well back at that Investors Day. I'm really interested in all this kind of stuff because it's, again, they know that they've got to go after the adult audience, and bringing in this National Geographic content is great. I'm really looking forward to watching this one. There was also as well a series announced recently, which I think I mentioned last week, which was Out There with Jack Randall, which is kind of, he was inspired by Steve Irwin. So I'm really excited about that series as well. Now, there was also a big bit of news this week where Disney announced that Halle Bailey is going to be starring as Ariel in the new live action version of The Little Mermaid. She's going to be, we've been hearing little rumblings. We heard like Melissa McCarthy was apparently in talks to play Ursula, but this one was an official press release, came out of nowhere, wasn't expecting it. And there's going to be some more initial announcements coming up in the weeks ahead. I think they probably definitely heard that all this news is getting out, so they want to get ahead of it. Obviously, there was a big controversy about her being announced as this. And yeah, it's just one of those really weird things. I've seen lots of different reactions. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily agree with those comments. I'm going to just wait and see. These live action movies have been a bit hit and miss. I'm willing to give it a go. It's that kind of situation of, as long as she can do the job properly, I really don't care. Some of these live action movies, I really didn't like Cinderella. Dumbo I only watched recently, and I kind of enjoyed that one. Again, I just don't think these are really necessary, but willing to give it a stab, see what it looks like. We've got The Lion King coming up in a couple of weeks as well at cinemas, and I'm really not sure about that. I wasn't sure about Aladdin, but that one really surprised me and was really great. And that one's been shooting at the box office. It is now Will Smith's biggest movie he's ever made. And I remember how we all didn't like the idea of Will Smith as his blue genie. Yet that turned out excellent. And also the casting choices for that movie were a bit iffy when people have gotten out. So I'm just literally just going to wait and see. I'm really personally not bothered, and I'll just watch the movie when it comes out. I think that's definitely the key thing for everyone, just to wait and see what it turns out to be. This past week, Spider-Man Far From Home got released at cinemas. I went to see it on Tuesday night, packed cinema, which was always good to see. I always like it when on one hand, it's good because it's like, oh, good, there's a lot of people going to it. It is until people start talking near you, and then that just annoys me. But nevertheless, this is the cool thing. I really enjoyed it. Thought it was a great movie, great follow-up to Avengers Endgame. Obviously, I think I'm going to try and talk to James when he actually gets back, see if he's seen it. I'm sure he will have. And yeah, it was just a really great movie. Really enjoyed it. The only key thing I wanted to put out there, and there will be, there was a story earlier this week up on the website. I'm kind of going to do like a video about Spider-Man, I think, for Sunday. And basically, this one won't be coming to Disney Plus straight away. It wasn't in the lineup back at the Investors Day when they showed off all the movies coming out this year. Reason for this is Sony are releasing it, not Disney, and they already have a pre-existing deal with Stars till 2021. And also Sony Animation have another deal with Netflix. That's why Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse went there. And so things are all up in the air. They might do obviously extra deals, but don't expect Spider-Man Far From Home or Homecoming on Disney Plus anytime soon. Obviously, Homecoming might come on a little bit earlier now because the deal with Stars, that's probably coming up to the end for that particular movie. And I'm sure Disney are signing up as much content as they possibly can. I'm sure a deal with Sony is in the pipeline. Obviously, yeah, it just makes sense for them to try and do this. But fortunately, existing contracts are always this big issue. And if they waited for contracts to end, they'd never get going because they'd be constantly signing new ones. But yeah, that's the big key issue with Spider-Man. Disney do own the character. They can do what they want with comic books, video games. They can make animation series. They can make television series. But Sony still owns the rights to the movie versions. And that's why they're playing well at the minute, because we've had things like the Spider-Man video game, which was only on PlayStation 4. I'm sure there was an offset in terms of what they were doing for that one. And I definitely think that is a key thing. But nevertheless, let me know what you guys think about this week's news in the comments below. Okay, so I'm going to bring James in on the conversation here on a question that we were asked on Twitter, which was, what Disney Plus, what things do we want to see on Disney Plus? Now, I'm going to slightly pull down that question a little bit more and be, what Disney Plus originals do we want to see on Disney Plus rather than kind of the back catalogue? Let's just focus on stuff that doesn't exist or we want to exist, that kind of thing, like Disney Plus originals. Now, I've been thinking, and there's a couple of different things that I've thought of. And I thought, rather than going with the obvious ones, there was one I came up with that I thought would be really cool. Was we have different game shows that go on TV every night, and whenever a Disney question comes up, I'm always like, yeah, and I usually get, the Pointless, I get the Chase, whichever it is, I would normally win the question. I love them to do a full-on quiz show where they go full-on nerd, where they go in the full, like, the questions are, who starred in this, but much more than just, like, pick the Disney movie out of 5 movies, and it's like, like Snow White, Terminator. And there's something a little bit more than just a generic question, but go into like some real nerdy stuff. I know they've been doing like a Disney quiz stuff on the Disney Channel recently, now out, but like a proper studio set up with, and they can, they go into Star Wars, they can go into this thing and really get into some like real history side of Disney. It might not have a massive appeal, but we see it a lot now where the questions, they always seem to be throwing in Disney questions here and there.
I mean, who doesn't love a good game show every once in a while? And I will emphasize a good game show, because bad ones aren't so great. But yeah, it's always fun, like in Jeopardy, when a Disney question pops up or a Star Wars question. And I could definitely see, maybe not directly watching it, not being the new show's out, I got to watch it. But it make good background noise or something to have on in the background while you're cooking or just doing something low effort where you can kind of listen and not listen. I'd be down for that. And yeah, you can go in many different directions. You can have one that's very kids focused, very, very simple questions, but for young kids. Or you can go for the people who grew up as Disney fans, the people who've been to every D23 and every Star Wars celebration. Just go, like you said, full on nerd.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of, like we have things like Pointless and The Chase and Mastermind, and all these, and essentially they are cheap television shows. You stick a
Oh
potato
yeah.
in front of it's a very cheap TV show. It's also that kind of thing of, you get the guests on, you get not necessarily 24 episode, a night. We have them on nightly here, but a short series, it could be quite an interesting way of doing it. And like you say, do something full on. I think that's kind of terms of like going kids friendly. It's like, yeah, you got to be slightly kid friendly, but like who did the music on the new Dumbo movie? That kind of kind of go in a little bit much more detail than maybe what you just find of pick match these 5 characters. That kind of thing. I just think that would be kind of a cool little, and it's also not essentially expensive to make. Not in some of my other ideas.
No, I mean game shows traditionally they'll record several shows in a single day, and they'll have 3 or 4 weeks of shows from just one day of recording. It's very cheap to produce because it's just some people standing in front of a screen with whatever form of buzzer you have, ask some questions, and they're done.
Yeah,
that's it.
The big thing really normally is the prizes. You keep the prizes cheap, it works all right. When a trip to Disneyland, there you go. So
but we're recording in Disneyland. What do you? Yeah.
So what idea did you have?
For me, in terms of like an original series that I would love to see is, I'm kind of cheating a little on this, is a continuation of the Star Wars Rebels story. Yeah. I would love to see them do an actual miniseries or continuation series several years after Rebels finishes, but let's find out what happens to these characters, specifically Thrawn and Ezra. Obviously, their fate is kind of mysterious at the end of it. The writers have said that they are alive out there somewhere, but we don't know the status of that.
Well, Hera, let me see, like Hera's ship in like Rogue One or something.
Her name is we saw the ghost in Rogue One. Recently, the book Alphabet Squadron, which came out this past week, and I've already completely finished because it was such a good book. It's now several weeks ago from when you guys are seeing this, but it was this is when it was recorded. She's in that book, and that takes place after Return of the Jedi. So we know her status there, but we don't know Sabine. We don't know Ahsoka. We don't know Ezra and Thrawn and a couple of the other side characters as well. And for me, I would really love to see a continuation of that story. Honestly, though, I'm expecting that if they do continue the story, it'll probably be a book or a comic book because, they're going to want to do new stories in the Disney originals. But if I had my wishes, that would be high on the list.
Kind of following on from that, I did have the idea of a new animation series, but I was thinking maybe slightly later, in the fact of doing an animation series set between like Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, focusing on the resistance against the First Order, doing it as an animated series similar to the Clone Wars. Because when the Clone Wars ends, let's move up, let's speed it up, let's jump forward in time, or set it rather than or maybe even between Force Awakens and the Return of the Jedi, but bring it up, rather than doing like this resistance thing where it's like that hasn't really caught on. That doesn't feel like it's got that same thing of being where that TV show is aimed a little bit younger, but like full on CGI animation series, sort of set, with Kylo Ren and Rey, and that way those characters can carry on in the same way that the Clone Wars with Anakin. Because that's the thing for me now. Now I've been going through Clone Wars, and I've just got I think season 6 to go now. It really helped flush out the Clone Wars. It really, obviously, just seeing those movies, like, okay, yeah, but those series that obviously were running in between all of that really helped flesh out what was going on in that period, which I really am. I've got so much more good feeling of the Clone Wars now, having seen this series properly. Makes sense because, they're bringing out all these new toys for Clone Wars that I want to be playing, especially in the tabletop zone. But yeah, I really feel like I'm seeing it in such a different light since I've been watching Clone Wars.
Yeah, Clone Wars and Rebels both did a great job of kind of building up that era that we didn't know much about. But prior to Clone Wars, the prequels weren't that great. They're still not that great. But the Clone Wars made gave them context. It gave them an actual narrative arc that was interesting. It really built, especially the character of Skywalker, because if you follow his story, yes, it follows the beats properly, but you have no emotional investment in his fall. But adding the Clone Wars into it, you kind of like, no, this was actually a really tragic fall for this character, who was a very noble general. And you can kind of, even throughout the Clone Wars itself, you can see a little bit of the descent. Obviously, the major beats happen in the movies, but that helps a lot. And the Resistance era, the sequel era, absolutely needs this. And it has been a big problem with the Resistance era, is that what should be happening is a whole lot of world building, and we're not getting it. Instead, we're just getting these flash in the pan moments of Starkiller Base and the escape from I can't pronounce the planet's name, but not Jakku, but where the base is. I think it was Kir.
Oh yeah,
something like that. That was where they ended up.
Yeah.
But in any event, we don't have that. Star Wars Resistance, the TV show, did almost nothing for that. Honestly, they built up the Poe character a tiny bit. They gave him a little more context. Some of the comics have enhanced that era a little bit, but we don't have a Clone Wars for it. We don't even have like the Clone Wars comic, which is no longer canon, but was a fantastic comic at the time, which really enhanced that entire story. And they need that in the sequel era.
And I also kind of either slightly into that same zone of maybe like a TV series focusing on the First Order with Captain Phasma, and kind of maybe following a group of First Order, or focusing a little bit on that era. I mean, she was in like Game of Thrones. I can't imagine some of these actors that are that expensive. It's not like they are top tier A-list celebrity kind of. They're not going to be expensive. I mean, I'd also just throwing this out as a complete continuation of Solo. That is a short run series, with him running around doing stuff with Crimson Dawn. With that, the trouble is, it's that kind of thing of. I would love to see them kind of continue. As much as I want something new, I still feel like there's stuff to be told there. But I want to see something with the Empire. I want to see something with the First Order, and them fighting, with the Resistance, and just that kind of building that whole world out a bit more.
I would honestly love to see more of Phasma, if only because they kept hyping this character up, and she does nothing in the movies, like absolutely nothing. Her part in both the first and the second movie is to seemingly die, in increasingly absurd ways to Finn. But the book was good. Yeah. The comic was good.
I was just going to say that book. I remember reading that on vacation, and it really. I think is one of the really annoying things. Going, there's a great character, but they just underused it. I mean, there's just a load of interesting bits and pieces there with Star Wars.
And there are a lot of characters you can do it with. Sorry, we'll move on to the next.
We'll move on. We'll do now, obviously, some Marvel, because we have to do that one.
Right.
So obviously, Marvel. I would like to see them do something a little bit more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but a new version of it. You can bring in some of those characters, but a much more integrated in with superheroes. Bring it because it always felt like they kind of sold me this idea of this team running around doing stuff with the superheroes doing their thing, and it never really felt like that. They then all went off to space, and they ended up doing all these bits and pieces because they're like, we don't know what the movies are doing, and we can't keep up, so we're going to move them off to the whole thing with Hydra. That whole era, I'd love them to kind of do a little bit more interconnection with that one there, a bit more in with the Avengers, maybe even bring in a couple of like superheroes and have them there, and kind of going in that vein a little bit more more interconnection with the MCU a little bit better.
Yeah, not necessarily Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. specifically, but something along the same ideas. I'd like that kind of middle ground area. We've got the Netflix series Daredevil, Luke Cage, and stuff like that, but they always feel like movie shows that wanted to be movies rather than shows. And I think we need something in between those shows and the movies. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was well positioned, but they didn't want to confuse audiences or something like that. But there are plenty of organizations within the Marvel universe that they could do stories with, both good guys and bad guys. One of them that they've already set up in the the movies was Damage Control, which is the company that goes around and fixes all of the superhero explosions.
Going to be a comedy. There was talk of that.
They started a pitch for it, and I don't think they ever finished it. I would love to see what they had going on with that, because there's a lot of merit to that. Although, again, with that level of destruction that they have to fix up, the budget might not be able to handle that. So, yeah, to go back to the question, I'd love to see something Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.-esque, but maybe a different organization that doesn't have to worry about it so much. Alternatively, another street level hero, someone like Moon Knight.
It's really funny. Moon Knight was one of those kind of things that, like, he'd be a good thing. I mean, I want them on Disney Plus rather than on Hulu. I want them interconnected. I don't want them separate. So Moon Knight was definitely one I was going to say.
Yeah, Moon Knight, or somebody along the same line. Somebody you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money because there's not a lot of special effects involved. It can be fairly Marvel light, the way that the Netflix shows are, but still have that kind of semi-routine show that you can do and you can throw in there. Doesn't have a huge impact on the universe at large, but still tells entertaining stories, interesting character studies within the framework of the Marvel Universe. And there are a lot of street-level characters that they could mention. And,
I mean, I'm going to have to bring this one up, but obviously the Netflix series, we've got Jessica Jones recently started. I'd love to see Heroes for Hire, maybe like a Luke Cage, Iron Fist team-up series. Obviously tone it down a little bit more, make it a little bit more... I mean, to me, I look at those characters... They were characters in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. These are characters. We had them in the Disney Infinity video game. These are kids. They have used them before. They can tone them down a little bit, and I think that would work quite nicely. And kind of like a stepping gap between it a bit more. I mean, I'd love to see more Daredevil. I mean, of course, he's always been one of my favorite characters. I'd love to see a continuation. Tone it down a little bit. Keep it. You can still do it TV-14. I mean, I think that generally, if you just cut back a little bit on the swearing and a bit less of the blood, it probably could pass anyway. I think there's certain scenes in those TV series which boosted it up, and I don't necessarily think that they necessarily needed them. There was some, you had like the sex scene between like Jessica Jones and like that that wasn't in there. Probably wouldn't really have helped.
It was even worse in the comics, because that sex scene is in the first issue of Alias, which was the launch of the Marvel Mature line, and it was ridiculously superfluous even then. It was literally the writer just going, I can do mature stuff. They're having sex. And it's like, cool. That's great. I'm so glad that you are able to do this. It has nothing to do with the story whatsoever. I mean,
it's just that kind of thing, isn't it? I sometimes feel this, especially like with some of the Netflix shows, sort of chuck this stuff in there, and it's like, it's like this wasn't in there, or they just cut away, or they implied it. It would have had to set, the adults would have picked up on it, and it's like sometimes it just feels like it's not necessarily adds to the story. It's just them adding it in there because they can, and we can do it to make it mature. And it's like, well, yeah, but it doesn't actually, improve the story at all.
Yeah, and that used to be a DC Vertigo thing, Vertigo being the DC mature line. It used to be a running joke that the first issue of every single Vertigo series involved some superfluous adult content just because they could. It was some writer who was normally used to writing Superman or Batman, so they couldn't stick in that content, and just like, I can do it now, so I'm going to stick it in whether it fits or not. And and now Marvel's doing it as well with these shows. And yeah, Luke Cage, for instance, not superfluous necessarily, because it adds authenticity, but the language in that show you definitely cannot put even in like a TV-14 era. So I don't know. Shifting a little bit, one more Marvel series that I think would actually be a lot of fun is the Great Lake Avengers. And if you're not familiar with the Great Lake Avengers, that's not a surprise. They're a small team, but that's the whole point. Is there a bunch of nobody superheroes out in the middle of the Great Lakes who are just like, hey, those Avengers, they have a really good idea, and we could like latch onto it, and we can be the Avengers of the Great Lakes. keeping in mind that like the worst thing that happens in the Great Lakes is occasionally someone overfishes or something like that. And it's a comedy series of just a bunch of losers who are trying to be part of this great organization, and they're mimicking it, but they're mimicking it wrong. Like they're mimicking it the way Kylo Ren mimics Darth Vader, but like flip onto the good side. Very good comedy series. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like generally Marvel's a lot easier because, I mean, I think in general like some new animation stuff would be kind of quite cool as well. But let's now flick over to a little bit more Disney side. So, I mean, the thing is with Disney is, it's like in some ways I don't want them to keep I don't want the reboots, I don't want the remakes, I want them to do something more original. And I think that's definitely the kind of thing. I want some original series, some original movies, get some different books in there. Stop like rebooting, stop going archiving through the past. Come up with something that's like interesting and new. Come up with some new animation, come up with some put some effort into some really original content of that. It can be drama or it can be animation, but yeah, just something a little bit more. It's because it feels, especially at the minute with the amount of Disney stuff, we're remaking this, we're remaking that, we're remaking this, we're doing a sequel, we're doing a prequel. It's like, yeah, can we get something like completely original? Some comedy series. I remember, you have things like Home Improvement, and get some sitcoms, because sitcoms seem to have like died. They just don't. Other than, I mean,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
no, I'm honestly fine with that.
Yeah, I love sitcoms. I used to watch sitcoms all the time, and it's just like there's hardly any around anymore. They just, I mean, I used to watch, hours of them a week, and like now there just does not seem. When you think of things like Friends and Seinfeld and Frasier and Cheers and Big Bang Theory and How I Met Your Mother, like everything's ended, but nothing's ever replaced it.
Yeah, and the ones that do replace them is stuff like Raven's Home or Girl Meets World or Fuller House. They're just continuations of the older series, and they're not new ideas. Sorry, my keyboard's getting attacked. No, so in terms of Disney, for myself, kind of sidestep it a little bit. Rather than doing, say, Frozen 2 or remaking Frozen or remaking Lady and the Tramp or something like that, take the universe that you have, take the Frozen universe, tell some additional stories in there, but not necessarily stories that involve Anna or Elsa or Kristoff, but just stories within the world. Kind of how they're doing the Monsters Inc. Show, where Sully and Mike are there. They're a presence. They're kind of, you're aware that they're there, but they're not their stories. Yeah. And I think there are plenty of Disney movies where you can go into that world. You don't need the original characters, but you can still tell interesting stories. Frozen being an obvious one. There's a lot of potential to tell stories there.
I think Frozen's, in some ways, they could kind of go off and do a Sven and Kristoff.
They could do that, sure.
I mean, they're not going to be expensive. I mean, the thing is with Frozen, it's the animation is what's costing the money and all the rest of it. And they don't maybe necessarily want to cheapen down what they've made already. It's just, I don't know. It's just that kind of weird feeling of going, could we get something a little bit more original? I mean, I'd love to see, like I say, it's a little bit more animation, get back to that era of like making some bits and pieces and just pushing the boat a little bit more. I mean, some of the series that they've been doing lately, like Amphibia and I think the Little Big Greens or something like that, they're pushing the boundaries. Things like Gravity Falls, coming up with something original, something fresh. Let some artists and get some teams in that can, do something. Maybe a shorter series. Maybe that's the key, rather than trying to do 24 or 13 episodes. Do an 8, do a 13 series, see what the reaction is, and do it like that, and just build on this kind of thing. I want to see something, especially like with the Disney original movies, get back into that kind of touchstone era of making some, light, small, so you can just sit down and watch some comedy, something that maybe doesn't necessarily have to skew to kids, but Disney have kind of fell away from that whole like era of making just live action comedy family dramas that I think they kind of miss doing, because it doesn't. I think like Fox 20, Fox certain like I'm doing serious movies. I want to see some of that as well. I want to see them, go to them and go like, okay, if you got some stories here that are a little bit more family friendly, like, can we have some of them, please? If you've got some great scripts, go out there and find some books and some inspiration, and just push it a little bit. Not quite keep it so safe.
Yeah, I feel the same. I didn't want to say like original content as an answer to this, simply because and you say original content's like, well, I could do a pitch for you right now, but it's hard. It's hard to be specific with that. Something I would love to see them pick up the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender and let them just roll with a series. I know they're doing Dragon Prince over on Netflix right now, but still, that's a great creative team that was treated very badly by I was going to say Nintendo, Nickelodeon. Yeah. Get them involved in writing something. But yeah, there's so many different ways you could go with that. But yes, absolutely, original series, both for kids, for adults. Do stuff like the olden days, like the Davy Crockett style stuff. Maybe not that series specifically. It hasn't aged particularly well, but that kind of, I forget the terms for them, but like the corny weekly, how will they get out of this situation kind of, those could be a lot of fun taken from a modern perspective.
And there's one that is what I've been saying about like not doing reboots and
serials.
Remakes.
That's what I was looking for. Serials.
Yeah. Like kind of tying into that is I'd love them to do something like Zorro.
Yeah, Zorro would be great.
New series, set it in like that time period, but obviously it's costing them a little bit more. But make it a new version, make it a short series. And I don't know, it just feels like there's a lot of opportunities. And while I like the idea of them going into things in the past, a live action Tron series wouldn't be a bad thing if they could stretch it out and let it grow. But I just kind of, especially at the minute, it's like it seems to be like reboot of a movie, reboot of a Fox movie, reboot of this, sequel of that, and it's like, yeah, just something, give us something original.
to be fair, that does seem to be the trend of the entire market, not just Disney. Everything is a reboot these days. They're constantly talking about reboots, and it's easy to understand why. It's safe. There's a built-in audience. You're probably going to make your money back. It's all that, but yeah, originality is fallen by the wayside as a result of that. And heck, not even that. It's just the copycat of, the Marvel universe was really popular, so everyone's trying to launch a superhero universe. And yeah, that's not exactly how it works. But
no, literally, when we were watching Dumbo a few weeks ago, the live action version, my wife, and then there was a trailer for The Lion King, and literally then I flipped up and said, Mulan or something, and my wife was telling me, are they literally just doing every single animation series like redoing it? I said,
yeah, they literally are.
And she's like, oh, really? What, do we need them all? And I'm like, yeah, Aladdin has done really well. Lion King, I suspect, is going to do very, very well. But yeah, it's just like one a year would be enough. Just tone it down a little bit, guys. Just and I just like bring back the Mighty Ducks, bring back Rescue Rangers. It's like, yeah, can we not bring back everything? It's like that. I feel like like gummy bears, for example. Like, oh, bring back the gummy bears. Like, yeah, but could they not just do something fresh? There is that line between. I don't want Disney Plus to be like, oh, it's just everything that you used to know, but new, but not as good. I don't want that. I want, you can flick on there and you see something like The Mandalorian, or you see something like what's like, oh, this is fresh, that's original, and doesn't always have to. But Disney, just give them some flexibility. That's where I'm hoping like Netflix can kind of, not Netflix, but like National Geographic can push that boundaries a little bit more and not have that feeling of they can just do something completely fresh and different and taking it in history a little bit more and offering us something a little bit more better than maybe just rehashes.
And I think a lot of people are saying that too. I think the remake, the sequel culture is really getting to people, and yeah, we want something new, but we want it to be good. Don't just throw random stuff at the wall. Please give us good stuff.
It's like, if they're doing 5 original movies a year for Disney Plus, if one of them is a remake or a reboot or a prequel, even two, I give you heads up. Maybe two of them are fine, but let the others, it's like at the minute we know we've got Noelle, we've got Timmy Failure, we've got Tongo, we've got Lady and the Tramp, and I'm trying to think what another one was. Oh, Stargirl, right? So it's like I'm looking at them going, well, at least four of them are new. They're based on. I don't mind if they're based on books, and that's the idea.
That's different, yeah.
Lady and the Tramp is the only one that sits there to me and going, if that movie never existed, would we need it? The other four, I'm going, it's a new story, something different, and that's what I'm interested in. I'd much rather. I'm hoping that they keep up with that trend of moving forward, of allowing these movies to be like, oh, these are movies we wouldn't make at the cinema because they wouldn't bring in the box office, but they have an audience. You find, I mean, I don't want to use it, but the Hallmark Channel at Christmas, the amount of really lame Christmas movies, and it's like, but there is an audience for that, and they're cheap to make, and they should have something like that. You think of the Disney Christmas movies, they're never like, most of them aren't amazing, but they have an audience, and that time of the year you would go, a brand new live action movie. I remember last year, was it with the Christmas Chronicles or something like that with
Kurt Russell
on that. Great, that was a perfect example of something. It was Father Christmas and Santa, nothing new and original, but it was a nice live action movie at Christmas time. Drop it in there, and I think that's what we need to see more of.
Yeah, and not everything needs to be a $1 billion blockbuster. It's perfectly fine to throw a $5 million budget at a movie, make $15 million back, and call it a day, and just be like, yeah, we threw it out there. It made a little bit of money. It barely impacts, the Disney bottom line, but at least it's something new. And yeah, we've gone away from what do we want to see into like, yes, original content, lots of original content. And
I think that's yeah, it definitely seems to be the thing of when they say Disney originals, we want it to be original, not just a sequel or a reboot.
Right. And just to reiterate the same thought you had earlier, which is that does not mean never do reboots, never do remakes, never do sequels. It just means balance it out. Not so that when we're looking at the lineup of titles coming in 2020, it's not a who's who of the Disney animated classics, but some of them are still there mixed in with everything else.
Yeah, and I think that's the big issue with 2019 is that if you throw in Aladdin, Dumbo, Lion King, and Lady and the Tramp, that's 4 remakes in 1 year. That to me is when you've gone, no. It's like we shouldn't have had Dumbo, Lion King, and Aladdin in 1 year. And then we've got Mulan coming in February. There's just too much. We needed one of them, or maybe 2, one cinema, one Disney Plus. That's where we've done it. And then when you look at the Pixar, when you throw in sequels, Maleficent 2, Toy Story 4, you could throw in, Endgame and Spider-Man, and it's like when you actually look at like the Marvel slate, also the Disney slate of movies this year, the ones that have excited me now are the ones from the Fox side of, Ferrari versus Ford, the Spies in Disguise. There's another movie as well coming. It's like Ad Astra. I'm looking at them now going, well, these are Disney movies. These are being pushed towards me. And I'm interested in them because I don't know what they're about. I know what Lion King's going to happen. It's just like, yes, I'm excited about Star Wars and Marvel, but I want something. I want something more than just reboots. And I think that's definitely a key thing going forward.
I'm waiting for the twist in The Lion King where it's Simba who dies in the wildebeest stampede, and the rest of the movie is about Mufasa trying to get over it.
Yeah,
that would be a twist there. Not necessarily a good one, but at least it would catch people by surprise. Yeah. And I think we have officially jumped the shark on this episode. So,
yes. A new Happy Days reboot. Get Ron Howard in. That'll be fine. I mean,
you can't do Happy Days without Mork, and Mork can only be played by Robin Williams.
I don't really want to get up and sit on the chair. But it is that weird thing. Sometimes I think because this is a weird thing that I was saying this to some staff the other day. And we were talking about. like watching TV shows that when I was a kid were already 30, 40 years old when I was a kid. They're now like 70, and making references to TV shows that were in like the Monsters and Happy and Addams Family and Happy Days that were way before even I was a kid. And it's like now they are so old. And they go, yeah, the kids today, they don't know what they make the same references. They're still watching. They're watching Friends as like that's like like we watched Happy Days or something like that. Oh, that's olden times before cell phones. but
you could. One last thought, just on that same thought line, which is that the ones that have endured, the ones that maybe the next generation doesn't know very well, but our generation still knows, even though they were 30 or 40 years before us, are the ones with the timeless humor and the timeless storylines. You can play the original Addams Family, the original Munsters. You can play Happy Days or Mork and Mindy right now, and most of the jokes, most of the stories will still hit just fine.
It's actually it's that thing of how they age, because all this stuff with people making things with cell phones and like in joke humor doesn't age very well. You
Look at Family Guy.
Yeah, Family Guy. That's the good side of that. Let them lot make an animated series for Disney Plus.
Fine with that.
Yeah, but let us know in the comments below what Disney Plus originals would you like to see on Disney Plus in the future. Let your wilds go, man. We know, as you can see, we kind of went completely nuts on this one.
Throw a pitch at us. Throw us your original idea.
Yeah, just to sign out, we are not Disney.
No, we're not.
And they will ignore you anyway. But just a quick note, yeah. But anyway, guys, go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like us, follow, and subscribe on all the different platforms. And we will be back next week with another episode. Laters.